Welcome, everyone. Today we have a really special guest, Cassidy Gard, who has spent nearly a decade shaping the national conversation. First as a journalist and television producer, and eventually on air. Her career took her into high pressure world of Good Morning America, where she produced segments that reached millions each morning. Grace, composure, always on in that position, I understand. All the while, she kept a tab open for her life dream of writing. And when the pandemic hit, Cassidy packed up her car. She did what everyone dreamed, including me, and drove west and landed in Montana. And we're going to hear more about that, her writing, some heartbreak, healing, reinvention, motherhood, I believe, times two.
Yes.
Cassidy is coming to us from Paris this morning, so it's not morning there. It's some other time. Thank you so much for joining. I can't wait to talk about all of these things and your book, which is releasing in May, Cosmic Goodness. So we have a lot to cover. Welcome
Yeah.
to Pulling Threads, Cassidy.
Thank you, Leslie. And I love the name Pulling Threads. It's
Oh,
so aligned with everything that I believe and all of the juicy topics that we both love to talk about.
yay, yay. Yes, not everyone gets it. When someone doesn't get it, they don't get it.
Yes.
First, I want to start with just your story. Tell me how you got from Good Morning America to being an author and a mother. What was that journey like in just in general? And how does it feel to be where you are now?
Yeah, I grew up in Florida. So I am from a really small town, and I was always so drawn to television and movies, mostly because we did not have a TV all growing up. So every time I saw one out in the world, I was just enamored with on-air personalities, movie stars. I remember watching people like Diane Sawyer on TVs in restaurants or when we were out. And so I clocked these people and who they were, and I felt like they were just so intriguing. And so later in my
Mm,
career, when I got to work with someone like Diane Sawyer, it was such a full circle moment for me. But when I was 17 years old, I just had this draw to be in New York City. I dreamed about it. I was obsessed. I lived it. And when I was 17, I moved by myself to New York. I had graduated high school 1 year early. So at the end of my junior year, it was 2007, and I moved there. And the
wow.
wild thing about that time is it's just if you go where you want your dreams to grow and you just plant yourself there, I
Yeah.
was instantly placed in this world where just every opportunity thread led to something else. So very quickly, my career ambitions transpired. That very first summer, it started happening.
Wow.
And each of those in wild ways, which I write about, and it's sort of the heart of cosmic goodness, led to me beginning this career I had dreamed of in such a huge way.
Wow. Okay, so I have to ask you your astrology before we go any further.
Ooh.
I'm going to be questioning it in my mind the whole time if I don't ask right away. What is sun sign?
So my birthday is November 26th. I'm a
Mhm.
Sagittarius,
Okay.
fire sign, the archer,
Yep.
and so much of my inner journey with recognizing the patterns is based in what Sagittarius represents. What are you?
First, what is your moon and your rising? Do you know?
Don't actually know.
Okay. Okay. I'm a Pisces,
Okay.
so definitely the dreamy, like living in a little in fantasy land, but I'm a Virgo rising, so that perfectionist, like there's actually they're on opposite spectrums, so they balance each other out, but I'm definitely very Pisces. But my daughter, who I was telling you before we got on, is a Leo, so another fire sign. So that desire to go to New York and be a part of entertainment, and even she's dabbled in the idea of journalism too. So that
When
must
is her
be
birthday? What date?
July 24th.
Okay, beautiful. I my second son is Leo as well, and he's August 17th.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Do you know?
Oh, yes. Manifesting generator. That's
Okay.
human design, right? That
Yep.
was my
Yep.
first viral TikTok was about
No.
being a
No.
manifesting generator. Yes, that was the first one that went super
Right.
viral because I had just discovered what it was and I made a video. I was like, this is the most wild thing ever because it's to a T everything that I am.
It's
And
crazy how yeah, I talk about it a lot because I'm a manifester, which is more rare, but my kids are 2 generators and a manifesting generator, and if you haven't looked at what your kids are yet, it's really helpful to help them understand themselves better. I understand them better, and I understand why things don't land the same for us, even for my boyfriend. Like, we can read the same text message and I receive it one way, and that's not what they meant.
wild. My partner, he's a Gemini, but when we go
Oh,
over talking about stuff, we see things totally opposite as
yeah,
well. It's so
yeah.
wild how that happens.
So wild. My apologies. I distracted you from, but I was like, I'm going to be wondering the whole time. So fire sign makes sense. So you land in New York, and y- the reason I asked you also, you seem like you probably are a pretty powerful manifester. If you arrived in New York and all of a sudden, like things are transpiring right away, then I feel like,
I just saw my mom's been of my childhood photos and she sent a photo of me. I'm about 15 years old laying on a bench reading Gossip Girl. And that was my first job in New York City. I had read all the books, but
oh,
I became
wow.
Blake Lively's stand-in. I write about it in my book, how it happened, but that's what first landed me on sets. And being a stand-in is really cool because you can be there every single day. You're very integral to the production, but you also have a lot of time sitting around waiting to stand in. So I saw
Yeah.
that. I'm like, I remember reading all those books, but it was so cool to see a photo of it. And I'm like, little does she know, in 2 summers, she'll be on that set standing in for Serena Vanderwoodson.
Wow, but you could have manifested that in that moment. I wanna do this someday, or I wanna be there. That is really cool. Very
That's
cool.
why I love journaling, little signals from your past, present, and future self. I have about 50 in storage, and when I flip through them, there are thousands of little signals I had written or things I had asked for. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened, and that happened, and that happened. It's
That is so
s-
cool. I love that.
wild how
I
that
love it.
happens. Me too. I love
It's
it.
really journaling is amazing. We'll definitely dig more into that. But tell me more about how things transpired. So you started with Gossip Girl.
The beauty of that time, it was 2007, and YouTube was taking off.
Mm.
There was this shift into the Tumblr era, and this ability to just make videos and put them on the internet was starting. And there was an entertainment journalist YouTube channel that aired for college campuses. And they kept coming up on the homepage, and it was based in New York City. And all of these kids doing it were easily like 18, 19 years old, covering all these red carpets. In New York City at that time, there would be at least a premiere every other day or so. And so I messaged that YouTube company and said, I really want to do red carpet interviews because the holy grail at the time was Juliana Rancic on E. And
Oh,
she
yeah.
had such a vivacious personality and she was so warm and endearing. And I was like, that looks so fun. And so that same time period, they said, "Sure, do one." And the first one I did was interviewing Cameron Diaz for Sister's Keeper.
Oh my
And
God.
suddenly you're 18 years old and you're talking to these movie stars that you grew up watching. And people like Cameron Diaz are so just warm and available, and their energy is so open. And so I had this great reel that started with all these little 15, 20 seconds here with all these different people. And it's like once that domino effect starts of you're doing carpets, you're being called, you're asking to cover this, that led to press junkets. And then press junkets, you were getting 5 to 7 minutes to sit down. And so suddenly I just was building this Rolodex such an old-fashioned word,
Yeah.
of publicists and studio reps and agents and managers, and my whole world just opened in New York City. And it was like all my dreams were coming true. So there was like a period of time when I was so early in my career, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, like the mental health aspect of the burnout wasn't starting yet. That
Yeah.
came much later. That was more
Right.
around like 27, 28, which was when Saturn returns, which I think is such a fascinating topic. And that's where my book goes into some of the darker shadows. Around that time, my
Yeah.
father became terminally ill with cancer. He had stage 4
Mhm.
cancer, but we were estranged at the time. He was a huge alcoholic my whole entire life. So I think this book is really for if there's a woman that grew up in a household with an alcoholic parent, you as an adult sometimes don't even begin to process what kind of emotional distress your nervous system was in. I have
Yeah.
always been hyper aware of energies and people, and there's positive aspects to that because sometimes people they're like, you're so clairvoyant, like your ability to just discern so quickly certain scenarios or people or places. But in the root of it, it's just because I became hypervigilant growing
Yeah.
up with an alcoholic. So it doesn't come
Yeah.
from like a positive place, but I've learned to turn it into something positive because I can clock everything within a room. And that's also part of being a producer is to
Mhm.
temperature check what is going on so you can produce the best possible production you can. But that also
Right.
comes at a cost.
It comes at a cost because you are temperature checking every single person in the room. And of course, not everyone in the room is okay. So,
Mhm.
whatever they're bringing in, when you are, I'm the same way. Like when I walk into a room, I can identify an issue immediately. If there's tension, if there's anything, I can also identify like joy. And even that can feel overwhelming because I'm open. My energy centers are often open. So I'm receiving when, again, I can't block it out. It's exhausting. It can be exhausting.
Yeah,
Even when it's
it
positive
can.
energy, even when people are like, I can imagine even on the red carpet the energy coming off of the people, like it's high. It's a high amount, high stress, joy, probably so many emotions, fear, and you're
Yeah.
absorbing that too. So, wow.
And
Yeah,
there's
I
a
think,
level of the people around you that are also journalists, all wanting the exact same thing. And it's a conversation with the star. That's why there
mm,
were times where I was at an event for A Star Is Born, and everyone was clamoring to talk to Lady Gaga. And she, the true professional that she made a point to stop at every single journalist and give each of them at least a minute or two. So once she said, I'm going to talk to all of you, everyone calm down. It's going to
right.
happen. It said, nobody's going to leave here without an interview. All of us just like relax, and it was a
Yeah,
different interview. It was the most viral, successful interview I ever had because I didn't have three journalists around me putting their
listening.
microphones in her face while I was trying to connect with her. Everyone knew they were going to get their turn. So I watch people like that can command the press line and the energy and take all of that attention and just direct it into this powerful moment of speaking to everybody and calming everyone down. It's like a kindergarten teacher to a
Yeah,
whole
that's
line of
incredible.
journalists.
Yeah.
So when you
Wow.
see how certain people in the energy and when you see how certain people in the industry operate, it's a beautiful thing to learn different
Mhm.
fragments of it and how you can try to take pieces of that to how you operate in your own career.
Yeah. You sound like you're very, we would say, in yourself. If you're talking about internal family systems, that's something I use with clients. I don't know if you've ever heard parts work.
I love parts work. IFS,
So,
right?
yes. And I think
Yeah.
it sounds like that you have so much curiosity about now, about why you have these gifts or curses, whichever you want to, whichever it changes, right? Sometimes it's a gift to be able to the energy of the room, and sometimes it's a curse. But you're very curious about it. When you were in your burnout phase, would you say your parts were taking over and your protectors and your firefighters were in charge and you were less curious because you were in the thick of it?
It's a really great question. I, at that time, was living with this really deep fear that wasn't going to meet my person. I had this true vision for there were so many parts of my life that I could not control starting. Didn't want to do solo. I think there are some women that at a certain point think, I do want to be a mother, and there's a path in which I can make that happen. And I have seen women do it. And on the other side of it, they get to have a child, they get to raise that child. And the funny part about that is a lot of times later, they actually do meet a partner, but they're
Yeah.
able to connect and start a relationship already having something that was really important. So sometimes when my breakups happened with people I had invested years with, the grief over it wasn't truly always about them. It was that,
Right.
oh my God, I really want to be a mom. I want to have a baby. My biological time clock is alarming. It is
Yeah.
loud. And I did have this deep faith. I have one essay in the book called Spirit Babies because when I was extremely single, I had the most vivid dream that there were two little blonde heads, probably about 2 years apart, running ahead of me at some sort of like outdoor preschool. And there were moms around me. And the dream felt so vivid and so real that when I
Mm.
woke up, I was like, that's what it feels like to be a mom. Like I was so truly in my body, a mother in that dream. And something happened after that dream where I was just like, it was a signal from my angel guides that it is going to happen. There are two children that are meant to be yours. And it did give me a sense of relief because as the years go on, when you're dating and breaking up and you're not finding your person, there's this internal thought, what if I just,
I don't.
because I have met women that I had a neighbor in West Hollywood and she was about 48 or 49. And when she found out I was pregnant with my first, she said, I always wanted a child. I just after 3, 4 years, all my relationships ended, and I just never felt, like, stable and foundational enough to adopt on my own. Like, the path just did not open for me, and it is, like, a huge grief I have in my
Yeah.
life that I never got to raise a child. So, I know, like, it can go both ways, and
Right.
I just wanted it so badly.
Yeah.
I wanted those babies so bad, so that started to become louder for me than the ambition of the career because I had tasted and felt and experienced the highest of highs you can possibly have work-wise. And
Right.
I still had this really longing, desperate desire
Yeah.
to become a mom. Like I
Mm.
wanted it so bad.
And it's so hard to tell our younger selves to just trust the universe and you will manifest it when the
Yeah.
time is right. Because you're observing other people, like the woman that you met, who it didn't happen for her, and she's going to grieve that forever. So it's really hard. It's really hard. But I imagine it's a lot of part of your book, and it's been my experience. It sounds like it's been yours. Once you give in and trust and kind of surrender, things start aligning and things fall into place. I had my very first life coach just kept telling me, you just need to surrender. And I thought I knew what she meant, but I had no idea until I did it. And then everything just started happening. I love that you had a dream. I have love that you had a dream and you had the awareness enough to let it calm you. Like you
Yeah.
listened. I love that's beautiful. I had a spiritual coach. Her name is Ashley. She's one of the beautiful people in my life, but we did a tea ceremony and she told me at one point, like right before I was able to leave my marriage, it's going to happen. And she gave me even a window of time, but you don't need to worry about it anymore because it's going to happen and it's going to be way easier than you think it is. And that she's like, my guides are telling me that you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. And I was like, okay, I can keep worrying about how I'm going to do this and how it's going to happen and if it's going to happen, or I can just trust. And I just let go. I took my hands off the wheel. And 6 months later, things fell into place and it was a very easy transition and it just
So
happened.
beautiful. That
So I love stories where people can allow themselves to just let go and trust that things are going to work themselves out. So love that part for you.
surrender. My byline, it's cosmic goodness. The second portion is surrendering the shadows, live in the light.
Mm,
And
I
that
love that.
became the mantra, surrendering the shadows. It is a conscious choice. It's a muscle.
Yep.
And like that promise and fortitude to live in the light is very small acts every day
Mm,
that put you in the light. It doesn't have to be like this giant, huge chunk, but I think those micro decisions that you start to make, like each of them do add up to being able to make the bigger life transformation that your soul and heart is longing for, whether it's leaving a marriage, or there were a lot of micro decisions I made that I do write about for how I wanted to have certain energies and people around me. And there were decisions I had to make for like groups of friends that no longer felt aligned and like just weren't leading me to a place where I was going to be able to meet a quality partner. I was living in LA. I had lived there for 13 years. So when you're constantly going out to the same types of places, meeting the same types of people, men in the industry, making a lot of money, and hoping that this is a family man, a person that is going to be loyal and have good virtues and values and want to commit to one woman. I met so many boys, not men, that were even in their 40s, just like not ready to commit, but said they really wanted to start a family and were looking for a long term relationship. But in reality, their actions weren't aligning with what they were saying. So my discernment, especially during the pandemic, sharpened a lot because I started to be less amazed with things in my early 20s that had impressed me because I had lived, I had wisdom. Wisdom had come into my life in a different than when I was.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot
It
of
makes a big
beauty
difference.
to it. Yeah, a
You
lot of
don't know
beauty to
until
it.
either. You
You,
don't know until you have it. And then you're like, oh,
yeah,
okay. But we all have to, that's part of life. That's part of everyone's journey is you get the wisdom from making the mistakes or meeting the
yeah,
people and having the experiences that you can look back and say, oh, or you have great experiences in people. It seems like you have always maybe had hope installed despite the childhood issues and your dad. You seem like somewhere along the way, you did get hope installed and belief in yourself early on. Is
yeah,
that accurate?
yeah.
I think
I
it makes
have,
a big difference. It makes a
yeah,
big difference in where I often talk about people, some people hold themselves back and they have, you look at them and you're like, this person is going somewhere. They've got so much potential, but something inside of them holds them back or they lack hope. Hope is so critical and we get it early, probably birth to three. And if we get it, if we don't, you can build it, like you can get it back when you realize you don't have it and it's part of your shadow. But I think that people who are like you, who have a lot of hope and a lot of belief, do not hold themselves back. Would that be accurate?
yeah, I
Like
think
when you want
so.
something, you go get it.
Yeah, you go get it. And, when you hear no, or if it's someone like your daughter, when she's going to potentially be auditioning and professionally putting herself in rooms, you always hear the stories of people that I just watched a Love Story, the Ryan Murphy production, and
I
the
just watched
actor
it
that
too.
right, the actor that plays JFK Jr. said he was just about to quit. He had been auditioning for years and
Yeah.
years and years, and he was just like, this is not going to happen. And they had viewed his audition tape many times, like prior, it had come across. And finally, they were like, why didn't we consider that one guy? He actually really was great. And then it happened, but now his career's on a different path. So I do think when the rejection happens, like this elasticity and availability to keep bouncing back is so
It's
important.
huge. It's
I
huge.
sent
And
I sent out my book proposal when my son was, and I didn't get bites. People said, it's such a beautiful proposal. We're just not in a position right now to acquire this, but we do love this story." And then I don't know how I kept rewriting it. And then when I was 7 months, second son, a year and a half later, I just was like, oh my gosh, once I have this baby, I'm about to go into another 6 month vortex of newborn, new motherhood. If I
right.
am ever going to get a book deal, it has to be right now, or it's not going to happen for another year. And just like all the stars aligned where the circumstances that led to it, I looked up this one editor that had been at a publishing that had the year before released a book from a different journalist at Good Morning America, Candace Gibson. And so I just cold emailed her. And then I emailed her at 11 a.m. And by 2 p.m., she said, "This is one of the most interesting proposals that has landed in my inbox in a really long time. Let me take the weekend and I'll get back to you." And then within the end of that month, I had an offer. So something in me the second time around, being 7 months pregnant, knowing like you're about to go into this tunnel.
Yeah.
My book deal was signed when I was 7 months pregnant. The final manuscript was due 2 weeks before my due date. And this second baby, this book, every step of the way is, it's actually going to be published right around the time that my second son turns 9 months. So something
Wow.
happened that my inner self was just like, cast
Yep.
again, even though I had heard no other times from us before. So it all works out. If you tell yourself everything is working out for my highest good, and you instill that into the cells of your body, and
Yeah.
you say it as much as you can,
Yeah.
it permeates into your heart, mind, spirit, body, and yourself differently to the world when you
Absolutely.
believe that.
Did you tell yourself, I already have a deal? Because I do that sometimes. I already have a full,
Yeah,
like,
I had it on my
I,
bulletin board. I did. I
like,
looked at it every day. It said cosmic goodness, book deal. I was really intentional and clear. Like I never didn't think it was going to happen. I just was so curious, when is it going to, what is the
yeah.
timeline going to be? But when I heard no, like I had so many other good things in my life at the time. I had a 4 month old and then a 5 month old, and I had this like baby growing, and he was such a miracle, like watching him, that I didn't place like the same level of expectation on the project itself, that
Yeah.
I have to have this or I'm incomplete. The only time I've ever felt incomplete was like the missing puzzle piece of, well, when is the family going to happen? Because
Right.
I wanted a family and to raise babies. But once that happened, I did have this like calmness that did come over me, because projects come and go. I've
Yeah.
worked on so many different productions, and after a while, they all have different meaning at different times, but
Mhm.
I don't place that same level of expectation for like how it's going to make me feel, because it's so different now.
I think that when we're forcing something, when we're seeking something, it's likely to come. So the fact that you were 7 months and you were like, all right, we got to do this, but also you have a little one, which is taking up a lot of your time and energy. And that dream has come true. And now another one on the way. You still wanted it, you still believed in it, but you weren't, it doesn't sound like, really trying to force it. And I think that's also when things come in for us. When we are actively seeking in desperation for something, we are probably not going to get it, or we're going to settle for something less. So I want to get to that with your partner too. But what an incredible journey, and to be able to get the final manuscript done in time before baby number two comes, because we know that's a crazy, the first one's crazy, but having two at the same time, a 2-year-old and an infant, it's nuts. I did that,
It's
and it is,
nuts.
nobody can tell you what it's going to be like until you've lived it.
What was the
So
age gap of your two children?
So Ella was 2 years and 10 months when Jack was born. But I also have a 28-year-old. So he was 13 when Ella was born and 16 when Jack was born. And he was a huge help. He was like the second parent. And he was like you, he always wanted a sibling in the house. So when Ella came, it was like a dream come true for him, even. So that was
So
fun.
beautiful.
Yeah. Now, when
That's
Jack
really
came, though,
sweet.
we were like, whoa. Like, this is, thank God Kobe was around to help. All hands on deck. But I love the story. I want to talk to you about, so I want to back up a little bit to when you met your partner, your now partner. Were you looking or were you, because we always hear the story of when you're looking, you don't find them. The minute you stop looking, you find. Were you still looking or had you backed away?
Had made some decisions in my life that really empowered me as a single solo woman. I had purchased a home that was only mine. I no longer felt this need that I needed to meet a man to. I always had this obsession with buying a house. I was working a lot and I really wanted to like own my own home and make it all of the things that were true to me for what a sanctuary would look like. And when the pandemic was going on, I was finally just, I'm not going to wait to buy a house till I meet a guy. Like, I'm just going to buy it on my own. So there were things that had happened that were like a level of confidence that began to instill something in me. Like, my home in Montana, just below the mountains, the view, it's like $1 million view. Like, when you're on the
Mhm.
front porch, it's out of this world. That started to instill things in me that, like, I wasn't seeking to start a home with someone I hadn't met yet because I was already doing that on my own.
Yeah.
But in my book, I do write, I met my partner on February 22nd, 2022. So it was an event in Joshua Tree.
I love
It
that.
was 22222.
Wow,
And
that's
I
incredible.
I had seen a TikTok about me in Los Angeles that we intentional sound baths in nature environments. And I was living in New York at the time, but it looked so cool that I joined the text message thread. And I thought one day when I'm back in LA in a couple of months, I'll go to one of their events.
And
The whole time,
what year do you think it was? Because we jumped and I know listeners are
yeah.
they're gonna have to read the book to figure out all of your timeline, but you were still in New York in what year? When did you leave?
So I left New York in 2010 and went to Los Angeles.
Okay.
However, in during the pandemic, I got obsessed with real estate because it was like the most fascinating time. Interest rates were so low. So in 2020, then 2021, I bought a home in New York in the Hamptons, 2.5 hours out of New York City. Another story, it was just like this house that was way price below market value. While I was in active contract, the seller kept trying to get out of the contract. Like, I knew, I was like, why is this price so low? This is
Yeah.
wrong. But it was just like these wild circumstances had set up itself to that. So I was still living in LA full time, but I had just bought a home in New York, and my mom and I bought it together and we were renovating it and making it so beautiful. And I saw this viral TikTok and I joined the text thread. And so for 6 months, 3 or 4 times a week, I was getting text messages, come to this event here. We're going to have a sound bath with this artist, blah, blah, blah. The whole entire time, I did not know that those texts were being crafted and sent by my now partner. But back to LA, it was freezing in New York City. I love warm weather. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to LA for a couple months until the spring and summer, and then I'll go back to New York. And I had just gotten back and I got a text thread from this company and it said, come to Joshua Tree on 22222. We're doing this beautiful sound bath in the desert, and it will be an intentional community welcoming in this super special numerological day. And so that I was like in a relationship, very casual with the man I had maybe 3 months earlier. It was, we were feeling each other out, but he did not want to commit. He was
Yeah.
getting out of a 12-year relationship. And so the night before, I knew I was going to Joshua Tree for this event, and We had a phone call and he was being so wishy-washy. I think there's something good here. I need to focus on myself, the whole thing. And so I just said, stop calling me. I know this nowhere, and I have a precious reservoir of energy that I need to preserve for myself, and I have nothing left to give you. So I ended it, and I that night made a list. I was like, tomorrow is such a powerful day, like 22222. I made a list of what I was looking for. I went with my best friend. We drove into the desert. Above us, rainbow, like it's going over the highway on each side, and we're like, what is this movie happening?
Wow,
We
right?
park our car, we run beneath the rainbow. I don't know why. I was just like filming everything because I was starting to experience like this really cool spiritual community side of TikTok. And every time I uploaded something, it kept going viral. And so I made this video and I was manifesting, like, I want to meet my person. And I had just made this list of what I was looking for. Like, I love men with beards. I love like wild, crazy curly hair. There's just like things I've always aesthetically been like attracted to. Like we all have our types, right? I like write out everything I'm looking for. And I met him that night. He was running the event and he was like, oh, hi. And he did not tell me that it was his company. I didn't find that out until much later. And our biggest connection very quickly was that he was at the time 6 years sober. Now this summer it'll be 10 years. And I had decided the month before, after during the pandemic, like when I turned 30, I was like, I'm going to be sober. And then 3 months later, went on a first date and got hammered. And it I woke up the next morning, I was like, "Why did I do that? Why did I do that?" Like,
Right.
I was becoming very thoughtful, just like energy exchange, like I was practicing celibacy, like casual sex anymore, and give myself to people physically that I didn't know. And that was like a bottom line behavior I had made. On January 16th, 2022, like right before I met my partner, like I had decided to become sober again. So there were a lot of like aspects of our meeting. Like one of our first thing we started doing together, we would just go to AA meetings. Like it was
That's
so
great.
pure. We would go get a coffee, go to a meeting, go on a hike. Like we were connecting in a way that had nothing to do physically with our bodies. Like it really laid the groundwork for a lot of trust. Like foundationally, he offered so much of what I wanted to find and wasn't. And the Hollywood crowd that
Yeah.
he had worked in that world and had on paper been incredibly successful, but then started this sound bath company because he was really drawn to like nature, things
Mm,
that he didn't find in his prior career. So that we had a lot in common. And he
yeah.
also very much wanted to have children and very much was, you know, gosh. So I guess he was like late 30s, and he's I hope, when the time is right with the right person. Oh my God. Not wait to be a dad. Like there were things felt very authentic and true. And then we decided we very consciously were like, let's try for a baby. And it was on
Wow.
paper very quick. It was fast. Thank God it has
Worked.
worked out the way. Yeah, yes. I do think at 7 months we both we were like, let's just see what happens. But
Yeah.
I think foundationally we were still like learning like conflict, how to communicate, that we were actively learning like while I was pregnant. And I think looking back, I think the best advice to give women, I think you should know a man through all the seasons a
Right.
year. That's really, I wouldn't have obviously made different choices, but I think when we decided to become parents, there were things that like were challenging in the sense of, when the baby came, like he's a bit of a workaholic. Like he loves going into a co-work space or an office for 8, 9, 10 hours,
Right.
and had this like inner, because at the same time, although I like really was so like in bliss of motherhood, I still was like exclusively nursing. My body was depleted.
You're like, we're supposed to be doing this together, and you're
a
gone.
lot a lot doesn't change physically or emotionally for the man in the same way it does for the woman. And so there were aspects of it that I write in my book, the identity reckoning of it,
Yeah.
that really hard.
Yeah.
And some of those essays are very honest.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
I love my alone time. Like it's my like dream scenario is that whatever a man needs, I think a woman needs too.
Yeah.
To have that
Oh, yeah.
space that is yours, that is
I'm
no
sitting in
mess,
mine right now. You're speaking my language. Like I'm a
right?
single mom now with my own house and kids and the dogs. And as soon as I could, I got an office and I built a little studio room in the waiting room. And anyone comes in, they're like, the energy is so good. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't want to go home. Like I love it. But I also have a backyard with a Buddha in it and a garden. And my son was like, you didn't make any space for us back here. I'm like, the pool is yours. The pool is yours. This side over here, this little park, Buddha Zen area, we needed that. So I
I
get that.
love
But
that.
I agree with you. Our entire identity has to change the moment we either get pregnant or give birth. And we give up so much. Like I know people talk about the work differences and the responsibility differences, but there's no escaping it. We have to change our identity. We have to change our patterns. It's very hard to maintain a full career. And when you do, if you choose that path, you're going to have shame somewhere, right? And
Mhm.
guilt. You're either going to have mom guilt or you're going to have work guilt because it's most men, not all, most men do not experience the same identity shift. They just don't have to. And
It's
their
very
bodies
true.
don't have to change. So it's a lot.
Hormones, all the
Hormones,
hormones.
your name. Some people, your name, like, but your body, like nobody talks about that. The your body isn't even the same. It's not even the same after one, and then after two, and then for me, three. Like,
It's
the fight.
funny. It's funny you mentioned name though, because with our first son, I didn't feel like any sense of need or desire to give our son an aspect last name.
Yeah,
But then as we went through going to pediatrician appointments and the receptionist always being confused that we didn't have the same last name,
yeah,
it started to bother me. And so with my second, I said, we're hyphenating. And we went and changed our first son's name to be hyphenated as well. And now it feels like very reflective of our house. And even
yeah.
when their passports have both our last names, like for me personally, because I had so much of my career built, and for your job and what you do, you probably think this is very interesting, but I just don't want to get married. Like I'm the one that doesn't want to get married. And
Yeah.
so
No,
I'm Goldie Hawning it, like Goldie Hawn to Kurt Russell. We are committed, we have a beautiful life, we have dreams, but I just don't want to get married. I don't want the paper aspect. So
yeah.
it did mean a lot for me that our children have a hyphenated name. But I didn't realize when I was pregnant with my first that I would care as much as I did. And
Yeah,
so
you
it was
don't
a
realize how often people are using their name. And once they get into school, like it's good. It's good to have the hyphen, I think. I do get it with the marriage thing, and I always recommend that people do it. It's want to enter this contract or not. I get it. A lot of people have a religious attachment to it, but at the end of the day, it's a contract that can be broken and it's very expensive to break and comes with a lot of pain, like headaches, the process. The act of becoming divorced or separated is not nearly as bad as the process. So when people tell me they don't believe in it or they don't want to do it, I'm like, good for you. Good for you. We can commit to someone and say, I'm your person without having that contract, in my opinion. So I will never, I have no interest in doing it again. My
Mhm.
boyfriend and I are going on 3 years. We're happy. We love each other. We have a very healthy relationship. And he's never been married and never wanted to. So I'm all for that. But I know
Sounds
you
very
probably did a lot of.
aligned.
It's funny that you wrote the list because I was going to say, tell me you made a list because you have
Yeah.
very big manifestor energy and manifestor powers. If you want something, you just write it down. I wrote a list. My boyfriend wrote a list. We had met on Hinge in April and our schedules couldn't get aligned. And I finally was like, okay, we've been texting for 7 weeks. Obviously, you don't want to actually meet me. So great texting you, but I was disappointed. I was like, I'm not going to keep texting this person. I was pretty recently divorced, so dating was new anyway, and I wasn't a multiple person dater. And then a month later, I said, sent a text and just said, "Hey, happy cancer season. It must be almost your birthday. I just got a message that it's cancer season and he's cancer.
Uh,
Do you want to go to dinner? I'm actually in town now." He works for ESPN, so he travels all the time. And I was in a training at the time, so my weekends were full. So in June, it matched up. And, but we both realized a year and a half later that we had both written lists right around the same time, in between our original texting and then meeting. And he was missing one element from my list. I was missing one from his. So
do you have those framed side by side?
you have taken pictures and like we haven't because
Oh,
his was in, he had typed his, but yeah.
oh.
And he made a slideshow. So there was a woman on Instagram who had the style dimensions. Men
They're
are
visual creatures. They're
visual creatures.
visual.
So she had her and the soul and the energy, I guess, of the person he wanted to find. And he wrote down the qualities, which were a lot of physical qualities, and then some
Yeah.
other attributes. And I matched, other than being blonde and I think non-Hispanic. Like I matched everything. He didn't have a hair color on the list, but he wanted someone bilingual, and I'm not.
What's beautiful about that is that language together. That's
Yeah,
a quality that can be acquired and that's very
absolutely.
flexible. Yeah, it's a different,
And I've always
that's
wanted to
beautiful.
learn. Yeah, I've always wanted to learn another language. And he was a Spanish teacher earlier in his first career, so he can teach me.
That's like that.
Yeah.
And men love to teach. They love to
Oh, I love
inform.
to. Yes. So your partner where was he at? Was he looking or was he just going about life?
Really hyper focused on building his business. He had intentionally left an advertising marketing career where he owned a business as well, but during the pandemic had really reckoned like, you can work for a lot of types of companies doing advertising, and if you're not actually interested in those companies or like what they're selling or the product
Yeah.
of it, it's not going to light you up. But he was really drawn to nature and intentional gatherings in nature to connect people in the Los Angeles community. And so he thought it was like, what if I take all of my marketing and advertising skills, but make it a very holistic, like down to earth, grounded place? And it was like really special. The LA Times wrote about it. These
Yeah.
events were a lot of times in nature and it was wild. Like one of the artists would take wires and attach it to plants, and then the harmony of those plants would come out on a speaker and he would harmonize with it with other instruments, like very unique
Wow.
gatherings.
Oh,
But
wow.
he wasn't actively like searching or to begin a relationship because he wanted to put all of his extra time, energy, and resources into growing this company. And so we were friends. We had made a list of how we wanted to approach our friendship because we both knew there was an attraction there. And
Mhm.
at the same time, like I was newly consciously sober and he wanted to respect. That's a very tender time. Like when
Yeah.
you're wanting to change your life and practice sobriety. And a lot of like my tendencies towards sobriety didn't necessarily come from my own tendencies towards addiction. It was more like fear-based, seeing how much alcohol had wrecked and ruined my own father's life and
Yep.
knowing a lot of the qualities of that had cast shadows on my life. So we we didn't even kiss. We kissed in June and we had met in February. So
Wow.
there were months of just like attraction and chemistry brewing that we'd done. He was just like so tender and like grounded and calm. Definitely wasn't trying me, which I
Yeah.
think attracted me more.
That
So
probably
yeah,
did. That did. Well, we both
that's
just
how it
watched Love
happens.
Story, and that I feel like Carolyn was that way with John. We were like, oh, if she had been
Yes.
chasing him, he never would have been interested. So I love that. I love that. Again, I think you're just living and trusting and surrounding the nature and the type of experiences he was putting together were probably so healing if you attended any of them. That sounds incredible.
And I was actively, if I had a chunk of time where I was off and not working, I was
Mhm.
going to Montana. Like I would block my Airbnb and I was just like, I'm in a road trip. And sometimes I would fly with a friend into Bozeman. Sometimes I would solo road trip. So I had this like larger than life thing that Cosmic Goodness was the property. Like I named the house in Montana. I still own it. It's still a very successful Airbnb. One of the things I'm most excited about with the book is that if people read it and they're like, wow, this place sounds so magical,
Yeah,
you
I want to
can book
go.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people can go visit it. And so having something that was like solely and purely like mine, that I could go be there and do all of my girl stuff, go there and like journal and watch movies and go get really yummy food and bring my dog. Like I would just go there and it was like my own mini retreat. And
I
you
love
can go
that.
hiking. There's a lot of parts about it that was just empowered and emboldened me because I wasn't in LA just like waiting for somebody to call me up to go do something. Like I had a place I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Montana for the week. And I would just go. And it felt really good to have that. And I think men also, when a woman has something that's like solely her hobby, her world, something she puts her own energy into that's not them, it takes
Mhm.
the pressure off because they're not just
Yes.
like, I'm her whole universe and world.
Yep.
So financially, it gave me a lot, emotionally, like physically, a place to go. Like I have this deep gratitude for Montana. It truly changed my whole entire life.
I love that. I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that it does take the pressure off because they don't want someone who's obsessed with them in the center of their, they do and they don't want that. So I know that we are going to have to wrap up soon, but I don't want to stop talking before we get a chance to talk a little bit more about the book. First, I would love it if you would explain the phrase cosmic goodness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I want you to describe the book to someone like who has never heard of it in
Mhm.
a very honest, unpolished way, if you can.
To me is this undeniable force that everybody has access to life. It is those synchronicities that can occur, kismet, fate, divine timing, and we cannot control them. We cannot manipulate how they show up. You can work with people in your life. Like there are spiritual healers and coaches and people that can help you learn how to access like your innermost divine fortitude and power for how you show up in the world. And when you are your most grounded and self assured, the confidence to recognize when things happen, it does change. Like when I feel my best and I look my best because I'm time to dress in a way that makes me feel confident. When you go out into the world presenting yourself like that, something energetically shifts. It is so different than when you don't feel good
Yep.
in your body. So, cosmic goodness is something that is kismet available to everyone. And it is that moment when somebody was like, you will never believe what just happened. This is so wild how small this world can be, blah, 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 blah. That's cosmic goodness. It happened because I named my property Cosmic Goodness. The sellers of the home that I purchased were moving to Ocala, Florida to raise horses.
Oh my
I had I
gosh.
had grown up in Ocala, so when we were talking, they were there and the realtor was explaining it. I was like, no way. I lived there for 17 years. And so
Wow.
when people were making offers on the property, I think they had this moment where they're like, oh, we got to give to Cassidy because she's from
Yeah.
Ocala and we're moving there. Like those undeniable things in common you cannot even make up.
Yep.
And so the book, it's 7 parts. It begins with the prologue, which is just the fortitude turning moment where I'm 27 in the newsroom having a nervous breakdown on the floor on an overnight shift. My dad had just died. My relationship of 4 years had just ended. I was sad, desperate, lonely, in the deepest version of grief because even if you are estranged from a parent and they die, I had made the decision to take care of my father because I felt so bad that he was the black sheep. No one else wanted to take care of him, and he
Yeah.
was very sick. There are still levels of grief there. Like, one of my best friends from childhood was like, "Yeah, but you and your dad weren't even that close. So you can't be that upset he died." And I'm like, "No, I am grieving the father I never had. There's still aspects of my life that feel hollow at times that I don't have that father, but it shifts into childhood. And I write about topics that women that grew up in a dysfunctional household will recognize themselves in. It goes into chasing dreams in New York City and LA, the pandemic, reckoning that those dreams weren't necessarily like fulfilling my life the way I wanted. And then it goes into meeting my partner. And the same way people can be really conscious and intentional about new life changes with divorce or changing your life, I took that intention around hoping to manifest and meet somebody. And then I write really honestly about motherhood. You can love your children, the humans that they are, be so grateful you're a mom, and then also go, what the actual F when your whole entire world changes. Like, I had postpartum rage towards my partner because I was so resentful for the power dynamic of like household tasks. I think that's something Eve Rodsky made really powerful with Fair Play. The emotional aspect of being completely responsible for keeping a household running and teaching your partner how to make it a joint responsibility. Like, our experience with our second son has been vastly different than with our first because we have hashed out a lot of things that we had to with our first. So I'm really proud of the book because I think it's very honest, it's very authentic, it's really a true portrayal of all these different lifetimes I've had. And I think women, even if you're Gen Z, no kids, not married, no like intention at this very moment of having that, can still read the career parts and
Mhm.
think of how to channel that energy into whatever your own dream is and how to make that happen. And I talk a lot about the people, the places, the things that unfold in front of us and like the value and importance of how you operate in those environments, because the networking aspect of it, like, as much as that word can be so like dirty and heavy, every good thing that happened came from an unexpected connection with another person. That domino effect led me into another like aspect of my
Yeah.
career. So all of those little moments are so valuable. And
Yeah,
there's
I
so many
love it.
aspects of the book that are so hyper personal and like, I think very relatable.
So it's about being open and having an openness and willingness to let things
Yeah.
come to you. I think we resist so much and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge what you said about your dad. And I had a very similar situation when my dad passed. I was 18 and it was my freshman year of college. And I heard, but you weren't that close with him anyway, a lot. And at the time, I let that go, but that it came back. Like when I started doing the work, it came up a lot. I didn't, because of people saying that, and this is for anyone, like when you say things like that to people, the message you might be giving them is you don't really have the right to grieve because
Mm.
you were close or you weren't this or you weren't that. And grief is going to come out. It's going to come, you're going to store it. If you don't let it come out at the time, it's going to happen later. And I'm sure that was part of your experience as well. Like it comes from out of nowhere. And I think your children are still pretty little. What you will learn along the way is that there's probably a second book coming because as they grow, so many things from our childhood resurface and we see that it comes up through them. And so keep that openness and curiosity that you have because there's more to come.
Thank you. I love that. That's so true.
Therapist or coach, spiritual guide in your back pocket because, man, one thing I've learned with mine is that when they reach those really pivotal ages where something life changing happened to you, usually a trauma, You don't even realize it until you're in the thick of it, but you're like, why is everything triggering me right now? What is happening? And then you're like, oh, they're 8. My parents got divorced when I was 8. Now I'm getting a divorce and he's 8. It's incredible. But it does give you opportunity. And I feel like you're equipped for this, like to stop some of the cycles that were happening over and over again. You get to be the cycle breaker.
Right about that, the generational patterns and how the work is in consciously deciding and choosing to change those patterns for your own children. Such
Yeah.
wise advice, such wise
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, I can't wait to read the book. It's out on May 12th. Is that right?
Yes,
And it'll be
yes,
available
yes.
everywhere. And we're in the show notes since this will be on YouTube, so it's out forever. Once the book is out, I'll put an Amazon link in there to our whatever link is best for you.
Go for pre-order now. So it is on
Oh, great.
Amazon now. You can pre-order
Put
on
the pre-order
Amazon.
link in.
That would be
Perfect.
amazing. Thank
Perfect.
you.
You still have your Instagram,
Yes, yes.
everything? Okay, so that'll all be in the show notes as well, and your website. I know you have a really great website. One last question, because I know you have to go. I'm trying to decide between 2 questions.
You can ask both if you want. We have time. It's okay.
All right, I want to know what authenticity means to you right now. Like in this moment, what does authenticity look like?
It's pure truthfulness to authenticity is truth. It is your truth. It might not always match with what makes other people comfortable, but being authentic is saying your truth and letting the chips fall where they may, because it's not always going to make other people approve or be pleased with how you're operating in life. But if you are true to yourself and you're acting with integrity, that is authenticity.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I believe the more we're living in authenticity, the more we're going to receive, more things are just going to come to us. Second question, what do you manifest next? Is there something on the
Yeah.
horizon? Do you have any ideas, or are you just rolling with this right now?
I have two active book proposals, like for a second and third book that I'm working really closely on. They're both extremely different topics, but each of them, it's so juicy and so life-giving because every time I sit down to work on it, the ideas are just like flowing. And
Mhm.
I really believe in the value of each of them. And I think working on these next proposals and knowing that I don't want to be a one-time author, to me, writing is the most life-giving for me, for like creatively, but also I don't have to go into an office to do it. So being
Yeah.
able to figure out a path of which I can still invest time into my creative pursuits, but also show up as a mom. Like right
Yeah.
now, my sons are at the playground with their dad, and I get to have a juicy, fun, incredible conversation while they're having fun. And that's like my dream scenario. I was with them from 9 a.m. until 4. And then I was like, go with data. Like I have something I get to do for my work. And I do tell my son all the time, I say, how much fun I've had with him and that I've really enjoyed our day. And now I am going to go on a project and Dada will take him to the playground. So he knows when mom is going to go work on something and he gets to go do something fun in the meantime. So I think it's like that balance of both and letting it be like an amazing perspective to know you're showing them the value. Like I hope he meets a partner one day and he celebrates when they want to go to work and they want to work on their own dreams and invest that time, because how beautiful that I get to talk to you and readers that might be out there that resonate, might potentially find something in my book that shows them an alternate way to access a path that they've always wanted to, but they don't quite know how to do it. And I
Yeah.
write a lot about how to do it. I did
Love,
it.
love that. I have one more question that I have to ask before
Yeah.
because the show is called Pulling Threads, like it's all about unprogramming, living life outside the box. Like we have all these boxes, right? We have the marriage box, we have the how kids are supposed to come. We also have an education box.
Mhm.
And I'm curious because you never mentioned going to college or anything, and you've had this multiple successful careers, and now you're writing and your proposals are getting approved. So for the person who doesn't necessarily want to take the normal or the expected path, Can you share in just a couple minutes about that experience? And
So I graduated with a double major in media and women gender studies. I got a bachelor's. However, I went in to go drop out, and my guidance counselor said,
nope.
let's, okay. So I ended up graduating school in 2.5 years instead of 4. I took 21 credits per semester instead of the traditional 13, and then I did summer school and winter term. I went to college because my mother really pressured me to do it. And one person said to me, your education is one of the only things nobody can ever take away from you. So I don't personally feel like I'm going to have expectations for my own children to go to college if that's not what lights them up. I think now there are paths to entrepreneurship and building and growing something that did come from a classroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
If somebody did not go to college or finish or get a degree, times are so different than they were in like the
And by the
80s and
time your
90s.
kids get older, I feel like it's going to be a completely different world. So who knows what's even going to be necessary.
Right now,
But
we're exploring like not even classroom scenarios, like
yeah,
outdoor nature schools, because our
yeah.
son is not sitting in a desk an extended period of time.
And a lot of the
I
program we have to undo comes from that traditional
Yes.
school environment that really is not a human environment at all. So I love that.
No, no.
Um,
I finished because in the book I write about like how I did it, but
yeah,
it was one thing I never had to look back and be like, oh, should I go back
I
and
wish
finish?
I
I
had. Yeah,
graduated when I
yeah.
was 20. I was 20 years old. I had my bachelor's. It did allow
You
me
were
to work
doing that
in.
while you were in New York.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I
that's
am a little bit of a workaholic in some senses. Like
yeah.
I do my best work when my plate is super, super full because it like my ADHD mind just like lights when I'm like, I'm on deadline, I have to do this. So there's parts about it that has been very life-giving. I do not think that a traditional education is the only path to success whatsoever.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much. I
you.
know you have to go, but I appreciate you so much. I'm going to put everything in the show notes,
Thank you,
and I
Leslie.
loved this conversation. Thank you for coming
Me too.
on. This was
Thank
great.
you for having me, and thank you for everyone for listening. And I absolutely love everything that you're building and growing as well with your own business. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so
Subscribe
much.
and follow this episode.